I wasn't planning on seeing her that morning. I only stopped by the corner cafe because my apartment felt too quiet, like even the fridge had given up making noise. The place was half empty, a Tuesday mid-morning. I ordered the same thing I always did, black coffee, a slice of banana bread, and sat at my usual spot by the window. Then I saw her. She was standing at the counter, squinting at the chalkboard menu like she hadn't already memorized it. She wore a loose sweater, sleeves pushed up just enough to show the soft lines of her wrists. My chest tightened before I even understood why. She turned, and when her eyes caught mine, I realized, my friend's mom. It had been years since I'd seen her anywhere outside his house. She smiled, the same kind of smile that didn't ask for much, just offered a little warmth. "You always sit by the window," she said, as if she'd been watching longer than she had. I laughed, though it came out softer than I meant. "Yeah, old habits." She carried her cup over and, without asking, slid into the seat across from me. The scrape of the chair against the floor felt louder than it should have. My hand tightened around my cup, and I found myself studying the steam instead of her. "You're still in school?" she asked. I nodded. "Finishing up. Classes, part-time job. Nothing exciting." She tilted her head, like she was trying to read between my words. "Exciting is overrated." There was a pause then, not awkward exactly. More like both of us were deciding how far to lean in. I noticed she stirred her coffee even after the sugar had dissolved, her spoon clinking against the mug in a slow, steady rhythm. I couldn't stop glancing at her hands. When she finally set the spoon down, she caught me looking. Not directly. Just in that way people notice small things. I cleared my throat and tried again. "I didn't think I'd run into you here." "I come sometimes," she said. "Usually when I can't focus at home." I wanted to ask more, what she meant by that, what was waiting at home, but I didn't. Instead, I folded my napkin into smaller and smaller squares until my fingers felt clumsy. We talked about nothing, really. Weather, traffic, the way this cafe never fixed their wobbly tables. But in the spaces between, something hung there. A kind of noticing. She remembered my order before I said it. "You always got banana bread," she teased, as if recalling some small detail from years ago. "Still the same." I smiled, but my throat felt dry. Some things don't change. Her eyes lingered a second too long, and then she glanced away, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. Eventually, she checked the time on her phone, sighed softly, and stood. "I should go, but it was nice seeing you." "Yeah," I said, and my voice came out more honest than I wanted. "It was." She hesitated before walking off, like she almost had something else to say. Instead, she just touched the back of the chair she'd been sitting in, fingers tapping twice against the wood. Then she left, the door swinging shut behind her. I stayed, staring at my coffee until it went cold. Later that afternoon, my phone buzzed with a message I wasn't expecting. Her name lit up on the screen. It said, "This stays between us." And that was the moment I realized I wasn't going to forget her. Her message stayed on my screen longer than it should have. I read it 3, maybe 4 times, as if the meaning would change depending on the angle I looked at it. "This stays between us." I didn't reply right away. I sat on the edge of my bed with the phone in my hand, the glow of the screen making the room feel smaller. My roommate's side of the apartment was empty, his guitar leaning against the couch like it had been abandoned mid-song. Silence filled the gaps. By the time I typed back, "Of course," I felt like I'd already crossed some invisible line. The next time we saw each other wasn't planned either. I was coming home from class, my backpack heavy with books I hadn't read, when I spotted her at the door across the hall from mine. She was carrying groceries, balancing too many bags at once. "Here." I reached her before she could argue, grabbing the strap that looked like it was about to snap. She gave me a quick, almost embarrassed smile. I keep telling myself I'll buy less, but somehow, we carried everything into her apartment. I'd only been inside once before, years ago, when I'd tagged along with her son. Now it looked different, tidier, quieter, like a place you lived in after people stopped coming over. She set down her keys, brushing her hair back with the heel of her hand. "Tea? Or coffee?" "Tea's fine," I said, though I didn't really drink tea. She busied herself in the kitchen. I noticed the way her movements slowed once she realized I was watching. The small pause before she filled the kettle, the way she tapped the lid of the sugar jar twice. Little rhythms, like habits she didn't think about until someone else was there. I sat at the counter, running my thumb over a scratch in the wood. You ever get used to it? The quiet. She glanced up, kettle in hand. Sometimes. Sometimes it feels heavier than noise. I nodded, not sure what to add. When she placed the mug in front of me, I caught the faint tremor in her hand before she pulled it back. She smiled like she hoped I hadn't noticed. My ex hated silence, she said after a while. Her voice was calm, but the words felt like they carried weight. He'd fill it with anything, radio, TV, even arguments. I think that's why I protect it now. I studied her face, the way she looked at the steam rising from her tea instead of me. Something inside me tightened. I didn't know you were divorced, I said quietly. She gave a small laugh, but it wasn't really humor. That's the thing about being divorced. People stop asking. It's like a wound they don't want to look at. I didn't know what to say, so I just wrapped my hands around the mug, though the tea was too hot to sip. Her eyes flicked up, caught mine, then drifted away. The silence that followed wasn't heavy, though. It felt full, like something was resting between us. My mind kept circling things I couldn't say, that I noticed the soft curve of her smile when she talked about the past, that I wanted to ask what it was like to be seen and unseen by someone for years, that I wondered if she ever felt lonely the way I did, checking her phone for a message that wouldn't come, hovering over words she'd never sent. Instead, I said, I don't know why this moment stayed with me. Maybe because it felt like someone finally saw me. Her breath caught, just barely. She set her mug down, fingers resting against the rim longer than necessary. You're too young to feel invisible, she said, but there wasn't any distance in her voice. I shrugged, staring at the scratch on the counter again. We set it down in her living room, both of us breathing harder than we wanted to admit. Stay for a minute, she said, brushing hair from her forehead. I did. We sat on the couch, side by side. Too close, probably. The lamp cast soft light, and I could hear the faint hum of her refrigerator through the wall. My knee almost brushed hers. Almost. She leaned back, exhaling slowly. It's strange, isn't it? How some people you barely see end up back in your life. I nodded. My mouth was dry. Yeah, strange. For a while, silence. Not empty silence, something else. I found myself staring at the way her fingers tapped against her mug, slow, uneven. She caught me looking again, and this time she didn't glance away. The moment stretched until the front door opened. Her son's voice carried in from the hallway. Mom. We both flinched, the couch creaking under our sudden shift apart. She set her mug down quickly, almost too loudly. My chest pounded. In here, she called, her voice steady but thinner somehow. He walked in, tossing his backpack onto a chair. His eyes flicked to me, then back to her. Hey, didn't know you had company. Just helping with some books, I said, my voice rougher than I intended. Her son nodded, distracted, already pulling out his phone. He barely stayed a minute before retreating to his room, doors shutting behind him. The silence returned, heavier this time. She smoothed the blanket on the couch, though it didn't need fixing. We should, she started, then stopped. I swallowed. My pulse still hadn't slowed. Yeah, I should probably, but I didn't stand. Neither did she. Her hand drifted close to mine, hovering, not touching, but so near it felt like a current between us. My body leaned before I could stop it. Her breath caught, quiet, but there. Her eyes met mine, and for a split second the distance collapsed. I could see the question in her face. The risk. The line neither of us should cross. And still, her phone buzzed against the table, the sound sharp, breaking the moment. She pulled back, almost too quickly. I sat there, hand open on the couch cushion, skin burning with everything that almost happened. Maybe it's better if, she whispered, but didn't finish. I didn't answer. Couldn't. Because all I could think about was how close we had been. How close we still were. It was late when I saw her again. I'd been walking back from the library, the streets empty except for a couple of cars crawling past. She was sitting on the bench outside our building, coat pulled around her, one hand curled around a paper cup. I almost kept walking, but she looked up, and that was enough. You're out late, she said, voice low. Could say the same about you, I replied, easing down onto the bench beside her. The wood was cold through my jeans. She smiled faintly, but her eyes were tired. Couldn't sleep. Thought air might help. The silence stretched. Not unfriendly, just taut. Her breath clouded in the night air. Mine matched it. In and out. A rhythm I was too aware of. You still talk to him much? She asked after a while. I knew who she meant. Her son, my friend. We hadn't been close in months. Not since I'd changed schedules and circles. I shifted. Not really. Just the occasional text. She nodded, pressing her lips together. He's different these days. Distant. Maybe that's on me. I wanted to say something. Anything that would make her stop blaming herself. Instead I said, he'll come around. People do. Her laugh was soft, almost bitter. Not always. The quiet after that felt sharper. I tapped my fingers against the bench, then stopped. She noticed, glanced at my hands, and looked away again. You shouldn't be here, she said suddenly, though her voice betrayed no force. Why not? She turned toward me, finally, eyes catching mine in the dim glow of the streetlight. Because I forget how young you are. Sitting here with you, it makes me forget. Her words hit harder than I expected. My chest tightened. I tried to smile, but it didn't quite land. You don't treat me like I'm young. That's the problem, she murmured. Neither of us moved. A car passed, headlights sweeping over us before disappearing. Her hand gripped the paper cup tighter, knuckles whitening. I wanted to reach for her then, to close the distance. But instead I said, quietly, sometimes I think about what it would mean if I cut myself off. The words hovered, dangerous. If what? She asked, though her tone was careful, guarded. My throat closed. I shook my head. Forget it. But she didn't look away. She leaned back, gaze steady, almost challenging. No. Say it. I swallowed hard, the night air biting against my lungs. If you and I weren't supposed to be on opposite sides of everything. Her breath caught, just faintly. She set the cup down beside the bench, folding her hands together. Do you know how wrong this is? She asked, but her voice trembled. Yeah, I whispered. I know. She turned away, staring down the empty street. Her shoulders lifted with a slow inhale, then dropped. And yet, her unfinished thought clung between us. The quiet grew unbearable. I could hear my own pulse, the shift of fabric when she rubbed her palms together. Finally, she said, I can't do this. Not with you. Not with his friend. The words should have ended it. But the way she said them, half a plea, half a warning, only pulled me closer. I leaned forward before I could stop myself. Close enough to see the faint crease at the corner of her eye, the way her lips parted like she might say something else. Her hand twitched on her knee, like she almost lifted it to stop me. Almost. We hovered there, on the edge of something irreversible. The air felt heavy, too full of everything we hadn't said. And then she whispered, barely audible, what happens if we don't stop? The question hung there, raw and impossible, waiting for an answer neither of us was ready to give. The morning after that night on the bench, I half expected to run into her in the hallway. Maybe she'd be carrying mail, or maybe I'd hear her kettle whistling through the wall. But when I left for class, her door stayed shut. It stayed shut the day after, too. And the day after that. At first, I told myself it was nothing. People get busy, they change their routines. Still, the absence felt pointed, like she was pulling the thread tighter, creating distance where there hadn't been any. I caught myself listening for her footsteps in the hall, for the faint sound of her key in the lock. Nothing. Finally, a week later, I saw her, arms crossed, standing outside her apartment while talking to someone on the phone. Her face was tense, lips pressed thin. I slowed, about to call out, but then I heard it. No, I told you it's over. Please don't. Her voice cracked. Not loud, but enough. She turned then, saw me standing there. A flicker of surprise crossed her face, then something else, something closer to guilt. She ended the call abruptly, slipping her phone into her pocket. Hey, she said too brightly. Hey. My voice came out flat. I searched her face, but she was already fumbling with her keys. I've been busy, she said, as if answering the question I hadn't asked. Right. She unlocked her door, but didn't step inside. Instead, she lingered halfway, Her body angled like she wanted to both invite me in and shut me out. We shouldn't, she whispered, eyes on the floor. Because of him. The words slipped before I could stop them. Her gaze snapped up, sharp and wide, but then softened. Because of everything, she said. And then she closed the door. Quietly, but firmly. After that, I started avoiding the cafe. I stopped lingering in the hallway. Pretended not to notice when light leaked from under her door. But the absence sat heavy. One evening, I pulled out my phone and typed. I didn't mean to make things harder. I just don't want to disappear on you. I stared at the words, thumb hovering over send. My chest ached with the weight of it. Then I erased it. Days blurred. I ran into her son once at the corner store. He looked tired, older somehow. Mom's been distracted, he muttered when I asked casually how she was. Don't know what's going on with her lately. I didn't know what to say. Later, lying awake in the half-dark, I kept replaying her voice on the phone. The way she said it's over. Was it the ex she'd mentioned in passing? Someone else entirely? The questions gnawed at me, sharper than any confession could have been. 2 weeks later, I found myself at the cafe again, out of habit. I sat by the window, banana bread untouched. The door opened, and, for a second, I thought it might be her. It wasn't. Still, I kept watching the door. Every time it swung open, I felt my chest tighten, then loosen when it wasn't her. She didn't come. I left the second chair at my table empty. Walking back, I passed her apartment. Her curtains were drawn, light glowing faintly behind them. I stopped, stood there longer than I should have, debating whether to knock. My hand even lifted halfway to the door. But then I let it fall. Back in my apartment, I sat on my bed, staring at my phone again. I typed out another message. I don't feel heartbroken. I feel paused. Like life forgot to finish the sentence. I didn't send it. I just watched the screen dim, the words vanishing with the light. And the pause stretched on. It was raining the night it broke. Not hard. Just steady, enough to blur the streetlights and make the sidewalk shine. I came home late, drenched, shoes squeaking against the stairs. Her door was half open. Not wide, just a sliver. Enough that I stopped. I hesitated before knocking, but she must have heard me anyway. The door pulled back, and she stood there, hair damp, sweater sleeves shoved to her elbows. Her face looked tired, softer than usual. You're soaked, she said, stepping aside automatically. I entered without thinking, dripping onto her rug. The apartment smelled faintly of tea and rain. She handed me a towel without meeting my eyes. Thanks. For a while, the only sound was the kettle clicking on. She moved slowly, like every step was deliberate. I dried my hair with the towel, awkward, watching her from the edge of the kitchen counter. Finally, I said, "You've been gone." She froze, back turned to me. Then she set the mug down with more force than necessary. I had to be. I swallowed. Why? She turned then, leaning against the counter, arms folded tight. Her eyes flickered to mine, then away. Because this, she gestured vaguely between us, is dangerous. I nodded, throat thick. I know. Do you? She asked, voice sharper. You think it's just about the age? Or him? It's both. It's everything. I stepped closer, towel still in my hands. My voice came low. Then why does it feel worse, not talking to you? Her breath caught. She stared at me, lips pressed tight, then shook her head. Don't do that. Don't make it sound simple. It's not simple, I said. My words came fast, stumbling. But it's real, isn't it? For a long time, she didn't answer. The kettle whined softly in the background. When she finally spoke, her voice was raw. Do you know what I'm afraid of? I shook my head. I'm afraid you'll wake up one day and realize I was just a mistake, that I stole time you should have had with someone else. I felt something hollow in my chest, sharp and deep. And I'm afraid you'll keep pretending none of this matters. That landed. I saw it in the way her hands tightened around her arms, in the way her gaze flickered down like she couldn't hold mine. The silence stretched, filled with everything we hadn't said for weeks. I moved closer, slow, until I was only a step away. I don't need you to promise anything, I said. I just need you not to disappear. Her eyes finally lifted, wet and bright. She let out a shaky laugh, pressing her fingers to her temple. You don't know how much I've wanted to hear that. And how much I wish I hadn't. I almost reached for her. Almost. My hand hovered, then dropped. What do we do now? I asked quietly. She stared at me, rain dripping faintly against the window, kettle forgotten. Her lips parted, and for once, there was no wall in her voice. We stop running from it, she whispered. The words sat between us, fragile, almost breaking under their own weight. I nodded slowly. My throat was tight, but I managed. Okay. And that was it. No kiss, no sudden collapse. Just her hand brushing against mine, tentative, staying there this time. Her skin was warm. My chest felt lighter and heavier at once. We stood like that, the rain steady outside, both of us silent. And in the quiet, I realized it wasn't an ending or a beginning. It was just US.IT didn't change overnight. It never does. The first weeks after that rainy evening were awkward in their own way. We didn't rush toward each other. We didn't hide, either. We just adjusted. She still kept her door half closed when I passed in the hall. I still paused a second longer before unlocking mine. But slowly, the silence shifted. It wasn't the heavy silence from before. It was a gentler one, the kind that left room for something to grow. One Saturday morning, I found her at the cafe again. Same corner table, same faint smile when she saw me. She had a book open but wasn't reading it, fingers idly tracing the rim of her mug. I ordered my usual black coffee, banana bread, and sat across from her. The table wobbled just slightly, like it always had. Still the same order? She teased. Still the same table? I countered. Her smile lingered this time. We didn't need to say much more. Just sitting there, her tea cooling, my coffee going lukewarm, felt like something steady had returned. Months passed like that. Not every day together, not every secret shared. Just quiet routines. Carrying her groceries upstairs. Talking on the bench outside when the weather was warm. Sitting in her kitchen with mismatched mugs of tea while the kettle clicked behind us. Once, I caught her checking the clock at exactly 8:47 a.m. and smiling to herself. She didn't explain. She didn't have to. The risks didn't vanish. Her son came around more often, sometimes dropping by unannounced. We learned how to move with care, to leave space where space was needed. Sometimes guilt would flicker across her face like a passing shadow. Sometimes I'd wonder if I was just holding her back. But then there'd be moments, small, ordinary moments, that steadied me again. Her hand brushing mine when she set down a cup of tea. Her voice soft when she asked about my classes, like she actually wanted to hear every detail. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't fireworks. But it was real. One evening, we sat on the bench outside, the same one where everything had almost cracked open. The air was cool, the street quiet. She leaned back, watching the lights in the windows across the street. Funny, she said softly, how something as small as a bench can hold so much. I nodded, running my thumb over the worn wood beside me. Feels different now. She glanced at me, eyes warm. Better. For a long moment, we just sat there. No confessions, no promises. Just the kind of quiet that didn't need filling anymore. Looking back, I don't think there was one single moment when I knew we'd be okay. It wasn't her hand brushing mine, or the tea, or the rain. It was all of it together. The pauses, the almosts, the way she stayed, even when she could have pulled away for good. Life didn't suddenly make sense. It never does. But it felt steadier, like someone had finished the sentence, even if the ending wasn't perfect. I didn't feel heartbroken anymore. I didn't feel paused. I felt present. And somehow that was enough. Final reflection when I look back on it now. It's not the words I remember. It's the small things. The black coffee. The tea she always stirred too long. The bench at night. The clock glowing 8:47. Little things that only we would understand.